My brother was always the golden child, but I only realized why when I saw the deed to a house I never knew they owned. Growing up, everyone knew my older brother, Ethan, was the favorite. My parents never admitted it. They always called it a coincidence. Coincidentally, Ethan got a car at 16. Coincidentally, I got a used bicycle. Coincidentally, Ethan's college tuition was fully covered. Coincidentally, I needed loans whenever I complained. My mother said life wasn't a competition. My father said Ethan simply needed more support. I tried to believe them. For years, I convinced myself I was imagining the imbalance. Then my father died. That was when everything started unraveling. The day after the funeral, my mother asked Ethan and me to help organize paperwork from my father's office. The room was packed with filing cabinets. Most of it was boring. Insurance records, tax returns, utility bills. Then I found a folder hidden behind a cabinet drawer. The label simply said property. I opened it expecting old mortgage papers. Instead, I found a deed for a house. The address meant nothing to me. The owner names did, my mother and father. The purchase date was 24 years earlier, 2 years before I was born. I stared at the paper. We already had a house. Why would my parents own another one? More importantly, why had I never heard about it? I asked Ethan if he knew anything about it. His reaction lasted less than a second, but I saw it. Recognition, then he quickly shook his head. No idea. Something felt wrong. That night I searched the address online. The house still existed. It wasn't abandoned. It wasn't a rental property. It looked maintained. Someone was living there. I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's face. The next morning I asked my mother directly. She froze, only for a moment. Then she smiled. It was an investment property. That sounded reasonable, until I asked why nobody had ever mentioned it. Her smile disappeared. Because it wasn't important. The conversation ended there, but the answer bothered me. My parents discussed every financial decision growing up. I knew how much they paid for our roof replacement. I knew when they refinanced their mortgage, yet somehow an entire second house had never come up. A week later, I drove to the address. I told myself I was just curious. The house sat in a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes away. It wasn't luxurious, but it was nice. Fresh paint, trimmed hedges, a well-maintained yard. Someone cared about the place. I sat across the street watching. Eventually, an older woman came outside. She watered flowers near the porch. Then she looked directly at me. I panicked and drove away. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the mystery got worse. A few days later, I visited my mother again. While helping her sort more documents, I noticed something odd. The property tax bills for the mystery house were recent. Very recent. As in paid only months earlier. The payer listed on the records wasn't my mother. It was Ethan. That didn't make sense. Why was he paying taxes on an investment property he supposedly knew nothing about? I confronted him. He laughed. He said Mom was getting older and asked him to handle some paperwork. It sounded plausible, but he seemed annoyed. I kept asking questions, almost nervous. For the first time in my life, I wondered if Ethan was hiding something. The thought felt strange. He wasn't a liar. At least I had never considered him one. Then another clue appeared. While reviewing my father's bank statements for estate paperwork, I noticed monthly transfers, every month for over 20 years. The recipient's name matched the street where the house was located. Thousands of dollars had gone there, far too much for simple maintenance. I showed my mother. She immediately asked for the statement back. That reaction told me everything. She didn't want me seeing it. The mystery stopped feeling financial. It started feeling personal. I returned to the house 2 weeks later. This time I knocked on the door. The same woman answered. She looked nervous when I introduced myself. Then she heard my last name. Her face turned pale. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she asked a question. "Is Robert okay?" Robert was my father. The fact she used his first name startled me. I told her he had passed away. She sat down immediately, like someone had punched her. Then she started crying. I didn't know what to do. I waited. Eventually, she invited me inside. Her name was Linda. The living room was filled with old photographs. Most were ordinary family pictures. Then I noticed one. My father, standing beside Linda, both much younger. Neither looked related, neither looked like friends. They looked intimate. My stomach dropped. I suddenly thought I knew the answer. My father had an affair. This was his secret house. Linda was his mistress. Everything fit. The hidden property, the money transfers, the secrecy. I asked carefully how she knew him. Linda's expression changed. Confusion replaced grief. "Robert never told you." That sentence sent a chill through me. Told me what? She looked genuinely surprised. Then she asked another question. "How much does Ethan know?" My heart started racing. I admitted I had no idea. Linda stared at me for a long time. Then she said something that changed everything. "Ethan knows all of it." The room felt smaller. My brother knew. Whatever this secret was, Ethan had known for years. I asked her to explain. She hesitated. Then she refused. She said it wasn't her place. She asked me to speak with my mother. Before I left, she handed me an old photograph. My father, Linda, and a young boy around 10 years old. The boy looked familiar, not because I knew him, because he resembled Ethan. The resemblance was uncanny. I drove home in a daze. The theories exploded inside my head. Was Ethan somehow connected to Linda? Was she a relative? A former partner? None of it made sense. That night I confronted my mother again. I showed her the photograph. She burst into tears, not angry tears, defeated tears. The kind people cry when they know a lie has finally collapsed. She asked me to leave. The next day Ethan called. He sounded furious, not at our mother, at me. He demanded I stop digging. That only made me dig harder. Over the following week I searched through every document I could legally access. I found old hospital records, insurance forms, school registrations. Then I found something strange. Ethan's birth certificate had been reissued. Most people wouldn't notice, but the filing date was years after his birth. I requested older public records. The process took time. When they arrived, everything changed. The original certificate listed a different mother, not our mother, Linda. I stared at the document for nearly an hour, unable to process it. Ethan wasn't my full brother, he was my half-brother. Linda had given birth to him. Somehow my parents ended up raising him. But that still didn't explain the house, or why Ethan was the golden child, or why everyone had hidden the truth. I confronted Ethan with the document. For the first time in my life, he looked scared, not defensive, scared. He sat down and told me everything, or at least his version. According to Ethan, our father had been involved with Linda before meeting our mother. When Linda became pregnant, the relationship collapsed. My father left. Years later, he met and married my mother. But he never completely abandoned Linda or Ethan. When Ethan was 6, Linda suffered severe financial problems. She couldn't support him. My parents stepped in. Eventually, they obtained legal custody. Ethan became their son. The birth certificate was changed. The story was buried. Almost nobody knew. I listened quietly. Then I asked the obvious question, why keep the house? Ethan looked away. That hesitation told me another piece was missing. Finally, he admitted the house wasn't simply financial support. It was guilt. Our father bought it for Linda, paid for most expenses, maintained it for decades, not because of romance, because he believed he had ruined her life. I should have felt satisfied. The mystery seemed solved. Instead, one question remained. Why was Ethan always favored? Why him and not me? Ethan laughed sadly when I asked. Then he said something I never expected. You think I was favored? I almost yelled. Of course he was. Everyone could see it. The car, the tuition, the opportunities, the excuses. He shook his head. Then he told me things I never knew. When I was born, my parents became terrified I would discover the truth. They worried I would feel different from Ethan, so they overcompensated, not by treating us equally, by protecting him. Every advantage they gave him came from guilt. Every special privilege came from fear. Every excuse came from their belief that they had stolen his original family. The golden child treatment wasn't about love, it was compensation, a lifetime of compensation. At first, I rejected the explanation. Then he kept talking. He described childhood memories I had forgotten, times our parents attended my school events but missed his, moments when they seemed strangely anxious whenever family history came up, questions about relatives they always redirected. Pieces started falling into place. Then Ethan revealed the final secret, the one even I hadn't considered. He never wanted the favoritism. He hated it. He knew the truth from age 14. Our father told him during an argument. After that, every gift felt poisoned. Every special treatment reminded him he didn't fully belong. He carried guilt while I carried resentment. Neither of us understood the other's burden. I left that conversation emotionally exhausted, but one issue remained unresolved. I still didn't know why my mother had hidden everything after Dad died. The answer came a month later. She invited me over, just the two of us. She looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow. She handed me a folder. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written by my father over 20 years. Most were addressed to Linda, some were addressed to Ethan. A few were addressed to my mother. They weren't love letters, they were apologies, page after page of guilt, regret, responsibility, fear. My father spent decades trying to fix a mistake he believed could never be repaired. My mother read every letter. She knew about all of it. She stayed anyway, not because she was weak, because she believed Ethan deserved stability. Then she told me something that shattered my assumptions. The house had never belonged to my parents, not really. The deed I found was outdated. Months before his death, my father transferred ownership to Ethan. The taxes Ethan paid weren't for our parents, they were for himself. The house was his inheritance, not a secret investment, not a hidden affair property. A final attempt by my father to repay a debt he believed he owed. Suddenly everything made sense. The recognition on Ethan's face, the nervousness, the secrecy. He wasn't protecting himself. He was protecting everyone else, including Linda, including our mother, including the memory of our father. I asked my mother why she never told me. Her answer hurt because it was honest. We were afraid you'd think we loved you less. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because for years that was exactly what I thought. In some ways, I still did. A few months later, Ethan invited me to see the house again. This time, I went inside willingly. Linda made coffee. We talked for hours, not as strangers, not as rivals, as people connected by a complicated history. She showed me old photographs. Some included my father. Some included Ethan as a child, one even included my mother, all three adults together, smiling awkwardly, trying to build something functional from a situation that should have fallen apart. That picture changed how I saw everything. Nobody had been entirely innocent. Nobody had been entirely guilty. Just flawed people making imperfect decisions. The mystery was solved. The secret house belonged to my brother. The golden child treatment came from decades of guilt. The lies came from fear. The silence came from shame. But the strangest part wasn't discovering the truth. It was realizing how completely wrong I had been. For most of my life, I believed Ethan had won some invisible competition. I thought he received more love, more loyalty, more consideration. Now I understood he had inherited something else too. A burden, a secret, a lifetime of being treated like evidence from a mistake nobody wanted discussed. Today, Ethan still owns the house. Linda still lives there. My mother visits occasionally. The family is awkward, complicated, messy, but honest, mostly. Yet sometimes I think about that first moment, standing in my father's office, holding a deed I wasn't supposed to find. And I wonder what would have happened if I had closed the folder and moved on. I would still believe my brother was simply the favorite. I would still resent him. I would still misunderstand nearly everyone I loved. Instead, I learned something unsettling. The stories families tell aren't always lies. Sometimes they are incomplete truths. And the difference between those two things can take an entire lifetime to uncover.